Podcast.
Hello, welcome everyone to What the Fiction. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host, and with me is the rest of my family, who we will go around and introduce in a moment. But we have just finished watching Madame Web in the theater. To my right is...
Hey, yo, it's me. It's Kyle, the Ben Parker of the group, I guess.
Oh.
Yeah.
Dying tragically in an armed robbery.
The former, EMT.
The lessons we have learned. And across the table from me.
Hi, I'm Robin. And yeah, I'm here to talk about Madame Web, which I really liked. And I'm excited to get into it and hear Mom's many thoughts.
And last but not least.
Hello, my name is Will. As you probably have guessed, I'm here to talk sometimes and listen.
Okay. Let's do a quick thoughts about Madame Web, or I guess overall feelings.
Speed run.
We're not going to be very careful with our talk, so if you haven't seen this, spoilers ahead.
We don't care.
If you're listening to this, you should have already seen it or been unconcerned with spoilerization.
Okay with spoilers, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you will know the future, and that shouldn't spoil it for you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Will, you get to start.
Movie was nauseating.
What do you mean by that?
Spinning and Dutch angles.
What is a Dutch angle?
So it's an angle used in film and TV shows, and it's when the camera is at like a significant tilt, not like just like a single degree tilt. It's like a good, I would say 30 degrees often. And it's used to make the viewer feel uneasy. It's often used in like wide shots, and it's used almost constantly for like every shot in this film. Like not every shot, but like a large chunk of the shots are Dutch angles. So much so that, I noticed it and paid attention to it.
There's a lot of like flips of the camera as well. Twirling, spins,
yep.
Things like
Blurs.
Like lots of things meant to make the viewer feel
cool. I want to come
uneasy.
back to Dutch angles and why we think that the director might have chosen, and cinematographer might have chosen to do that. But what else were your general thoughts about the film, Will?
The movie is actually pretty good. I would say that on an overall scale, it would probably be about an 8.
8 out of 10? Or 8 out of 100?
8 out of 10.
Okay, it's good to know what these measure, or it could be 8 out of 7, and then you're like, wow, blew you out of the water.
80.
8 out of 5,
Cool. How about you, Robin?
I quite liked it. I felt like some of the directing choices were interesting, but I think overall my main thought is that it feels very 2003, which is when it's set, right? Like I've seen a couple of bits and pieces of media from that came out in like early to mid 2000s, right? And it just had that energy about it. But I liked it. Definitely. There were just some choices that I think could have, if changed, made the movie better. But I would say overall, like, not a bad movie. I would watch it again. If there's like a sequel coming out, I'll watch it in, sequential order.
Wow, you liked it enough to watch it again and watch a sequel.
Yeah.
Cool. How about you?
The more I think about the movie, the more I like it, and the more I can ignore the things that were obvious drawbacks to the movie. I thought it was a lot of fun and very entertaining. I really struggled with the fascination with Ezekiel being such a focal point in the movie, in that he was a really boring villain. We found out in the pre-interview thing that was before the trailer played that his character, the actor, really wanted to portray the character from the comics with how he walked, and that he never wore shoes. But like the fact that he never wore shoes was never a focus on the movie, and nor was it anything to do with his character. And so his relationship with his lackey woman in the chair was a little weird, and it was never explained really or led to anything. And honestly, we could have handled 90% less of his time as interacting with that character, given that to Cassie Webb and the girls, and
made them much more developed.
Made them much more developed and kept him as like this just thing that was stalking them and was showing up with only just slight explanation of like he contacts the woman in the chair. Maybe we don't even know who she is or whatever. And maybe we get a little bit of explanation later on, and it would have been a much tighter movie.
Yeah. A lot of the Ezekiel stuff was not necessary.
If you were going to put the movie on a scale, where would you put it of 1 to 10?
Oh, I think it's a solid 8 as well. Yeah, like I legitimately was like, I will watch this again when it comes out, on a streaming service or on a
streaming service
on Crave for us in Canada. I would also love to see more of Julia, Anya, and Celeste. I wrote them down. I looked them up.
It's Maddie.
I looked
and
up.
wrote them down.
I knew Julia and Anya. I didn't know
Maddie.
Celeste.
Her name is Maddie.
Who's Maddie?
Maddie's the third girl.
But her
Who is Celeste?
That's the actress, Maddie.
Let's be clear here, folks.
We didn't really know her name.
We don't know who any of those three characters
Julia
are.
had her name on her necklace, and Anya I remember.
Exactly. So you've written them down.
Yes.
I was going to ask, does anybody remember these three characters? Because while you've written them down, you looked them up.
I looked up the wrong person.
You even had to look, but I knew to look them up.
I knew Anya and Julia. I just didn't know the third girl's name.
Even if you knew Anya, you still, we knew Julia. She had it on her necklace. I will give that to everybody at the table. I was paying attention too. And when we got home from the car, I could only remember Julia. I was like, it starts with an A or something.
Maddie.
And I could not remember the other one to save my life.
I remembered them.
But I was going to ask before Mom said, can you remember all three of the girls' names?
Yes, I knew their names.
I remember their names, but I don't know which girl they fit to.
Because they did say them in the car.
The problem with that is that they're not established people.
Yeah.
They are all very flat characters. There's no dramatic arc for any of them.
Some of them have some stuff.
They all have a single defining character attribute, and they are static, flat characters. They don't have a plot, any of those three girls.
I would argue that Julia has the most to do, because we see her, some of the earliest stuff with her is
okay.
She uses the most of her screen time. The actress did.
Yeah.
But her lines are no different. I would say all of the characters fit sort of like this child or damsel archetype where they don't really have a lot. They're just basically plot devices to give Madam Web an opportunity to become their protector and mother, basically. And that's what happens.
I'll put it this way. At any point, could all three of those girls just have been one human being?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could have just been one human being left alone the entire time. The only reason there's three is it shows off Madam Web saving all three at the same time somehow.
I do like their interpersonal dynamics that we see a little bit. I don't fully agree with you guys to say that they're flat, because they do actually have character.
Okay, tell me how they have a round character that changes.
I don't think it's entirely flat, okay? I think that they have more than one defining element.
Like a triangle.
You see, Julia is obviously really uncomfortable with authority, has mother issues, and you can see how Julia and Cassie kind of Julia's oh, you're kind of like my mom, because my mom's not in the picture and my stepmom doesn't like me.
Yeah, so and Julia's on a quest for a mother figure, and which, all three of them are.
Yes.
Yeah, and I missed a good chunk of Anya's stuff because I went to the bathroom.
I don't think you missed any Anya stuff while you were in the washroom.
Her biggest defining feature is she's really good at math, which is
she's great at math, and
for Anya?
Yeah.
She doesn't want to run to the police because that's cool, that's interesting. I think they gave them some stuff, but man, they were obsessed with Ezekiel. He's so boring. Oh my god.
I did it because, I've worked so hard to get to this point, and I stole these spiders for essentially no reason. So
I had a hard childhood.
Life was hard and I worked for it, and I don't want to die eventually. There's some interesting things that they were saying with that.
Life was hard and I worked a lot, and I don't want to die eventually like everybody else does.
But if you focus on the story from Cassie Webb's perspective,
definitely.
It starts with essentially her birth, the circumstances of her birth, and it ends with the circumstances of another hero's birth that she interacts with in the comic universe. And there's a lot of, why do heroes become heroes? Why do parents make sacrifices? Why do we do the things we do even though they have zero benefit to us? Because we have a villain that has nothing but self-benefit actions versus Cassie Webb, Cassie Webb's mom, the actions of being an EMS person. She can't even accept thanks from people. And in the end, it's all about us trying to make a better tomorrow for our children so that they can leave lives to make a better tomorrow for somebody else.
Yeah, so they can't be killed by a shoeless Spider-Man wannabe.
Exactly, but he wore boots when he was in the spider costume.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. Like,
he was shoeless,
why was
but
he
then
booted?
He had his spider boots on when he was in the spider costume.
Yep. And why is it a spider costume?
Yeah.
And again, I still think if he had gone up to James Jonah Jameson on the street, because this is 2003, and punched him in the face, he could be like, I hate all spider people, and it would have made the best Easter egg.
I don't doubt.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Let's go back to Dutch angles for a second.
Yeah.
I want to talk about why we think that the director and cinematographer made those choices.
Well, the entire movie, especially in the beginning, we're supposed to feel a bit, just from my perspective, we're supposed to feel a bit lost. I think, like, Cassie feels lost, feels overwhelmed, especially when she starts getting all of these visions and stuff. And when she dies in the harbor, lake, the water, just feels like incredibly confused, lost, like, what I see mean anything? Was it just like my brain thinking after death? Like, what's happening? And the Dutch angles and the use of the spinning and stuff, I think, in the VFX is to kind of showcase where Cassie's at emotionally, I think, a lot of the time.
Like, when Cassie is in the lake, dying, she's being lost. She's exiting her life, but she knows she has more purpose. So she tries to escape because it shows everything that's going to happen inside the entire movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like the S.
Yep.
At the very end. And a ton of other stuff. You could have looked very detailedly at that scene and then found out what was going to happen at the end of the movie using that one scene.
From my perspective, they used the Dutch angles and that spinning a lot of the time to replicate a lot of the spider movement and the rapid cut flow of the chase scenes and the movement, and also to disorient you because Cassie herself is disoriented between what has not yet happened and what is happening.
Yeah.
It was great.
This movie needed 3D.
Ooh.
Whoa. I feel like there was not a big enough popcorn bucket for the vomit that might have happened in the theater.
I would have loved 3D. It would have been like...
All over the place. Hey?
There was also a lot of extreme violence in the visions that she had.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, especially in the start of the movie.
It feels very intrusive thought to me.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Like the worst case scenario, like where you're like, your brain automatically goes to the worst case scenario, but that's her life now, is literally all the worst case scenarios, and she has to stop them.
Yeah, but like, we know that Ezekiel was going to do that if she didn't move.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they made it quite extreme in the start of the movie, and then there was less violence as the movie went on that we saw happen, which I thought was really great, because it's like she's moving from this violent world that she's thrust into and making it a less violent world.
So it's a good point. I also am intrigued as to why it happens when she's 30 and not sooner, or at least there's some piece of that occurred.
I think it's definitely related to her like almost dying.
Right. And I think it's this fascination that they spent so much time with the villain.
Yeah.
And other films have had this problem in the past too, where the director or somebody gets caught up with a fascination for the villain and always wanting to know, what's the villain doing now? we should tune in with the villain and see where they're doing and what their thoughts and why they're so angry when they're getting foiled by the heroes. But we don't care about that.
He was so boring.
They're always boring because their machinations, we don't care why they're doing it. We don't care what's going on in the background.
Unless they have a really interesting, like actually thought-provoking argument that is a commentary on something, I don't think it's necessary to have that much villain in a movie. Unless your villain is making a commentary on society, or they have some actually kind of twistedly reasonable perspective.
Yes, or give us a redemptive arc.
Yeah.
Tease us with redemption.
He was a very flat villain in that his motivation was selfishness and greed and sort of just trying to end something before it begins, right?
Wealth, immortality, and power. He's achieved it. Now he doesn't want to die. So now he must kill these 3 teenage girls. Yeah. He has to kill them.
He has to kill them.
No
he can't
other
even just be like, hey, why don't you not kill me when you get older? Like, he could have had like a regular conversation. They'll be like, cool, we won't kill you when you get older.
I'll give you a lot of money if you don't kill me.
Like, nope, has to kill them. And even the explanation in bed with the lady who he steals.
Oh, that scene was so weird.
I was like, you're such a weirdo.
So,
why did
he have to like sleep with this woman and then give the technology to somebody else we don't know?
Some of the
he could have stolen her purse.
Why didn't he just have that be the person all along?
That would have been smarter.
It just further develops his dangerousness and his poison and whatnot, yada yada yada.
Some of his like there was some dialogue in the movie that felt really stilted, especially a lot with Ezekiel. I was just like, I don't actually see a real person saying that.
I don't either.
Yeah. Ezekiel was probably the weakest. Any scene with Ezekiel, when he wasn't in his spider suit just being menacing
or evil,
was just the weakest part of the movie. Everything else was fine.
We didn't need him.
him.
And Madam Web tells us that at the end of the movie when he's like, but the prophecy was that they were going to kill me. And she's like, no, the prophecy was that you were going to make me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was what was going on all along. You saw those 3 people as a danger to you when you were the creation of my heroic
impetus to create
You're the lady in the chair's like, oh, I identified the woman with them. And he's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
That's when he sealed his fate to me, I think.
Yeah.
I don't care. And then she tells him anyway. And then he's like, oh, I do care.
Oh, wait, her. She's supposed to be dead.
There's like karma elements too.
Yeah.
Karma, fate. There was a lot of those themes.
What? This is made possible by Loki season 2. Sorry.
What?
You leaned over and whispered that to me in the middle of the movie.
Why did they have to show the backstory of her mom twice?
I fully agree with that. They show it to us right at the beginning, and then they show us a much more complicated, filled with emotion moment later on. We didn't need the Ezekiel is a bad guy moment then. I had no need for that.
I feel like they could have done it with a like semi-flashy montage of what happened to the mom, the baby being born with the spider people. Like, honestly, like you could have shrunk it to like 2 minutes or less than a minute and a half or something like that.
We didn't need the dialogue.
And then it jumps into her thing. It's like, I never really knew where I came from. And it's just like those flashes because it could have been like a dream or something, or and then it's explained later on in the movie. You could have really tightened that up,
because truthfully we don't need the Ezekiel stuff, and
it just frames our villain. Who cares about that?
I mean, it also gives us like, we want to like her mom, but she doesn't like her mom, so it would have been more powerful if we didn't like her mom to start with and then had the explanation later on.
Right? Instead, she doesn't like her mom, we like her mom, and so now we don't like her as much as we should.
Yeah. Actually, that is how I felt. That's kind of not great.
Right? We want to frame things from the perspective of our hero. What do we do to make us love and admire and want to see the hero succeed?
Because this isn't like an unreliable narrator. This is a hero story, and you want to tell it that way, right? Like, why do we have so much empathy for, like...
I get why the directors placed 2 of the backstories. They were like, oh yeah, we forgot about her backstory while watching the movie.
I do think that like we like needed to see her mom's face so we recognize her later. So I do think like a shortened, tighter version of the backstory, maybe just show me, not tell me, would have been good then. And then having the longer version where it's like, you know, fleshed out during that like flashback scene. There's a bunch of really cool like mythical things happening. There's a big heroine's journey happening for Madame Web overall, including sort of meeting the goddess, the rebirths that happen in the water when her powers first start. And then again, when she's in that cave where she was born, she meets with her mother and there's a healing of the mother-daughter split, which is like her taking on this official role as adopted mother and protector of these 3 girls. And that's almost why I think that they were more flat and
does that
maiden-like, damsel-like, because damsels often have a hunter that is hunting them as part of their story.
We basically got Tiana, Snow White, and
I called them the Powerpuff Girls. They are like the Powerpuff Girls waiting to become heroes, like the pre-Powerpuff Girls. And Madame Web herself goes from being a hero EMS person to being a mother to being kind of top of her power
to crone. She literally goes. She goes all 3 phases.
Hero, queen, king, crone, and
me when I speed run.
She speed runs, and now she's a crone.
Runs the whole thing, and now we can introduce more Madame Web related stuff down the road and not have to worry about it.
Yeah,
but it's weird.
It feels like the Black Widow movie. It feels like a prequel before I saw like Avengers.
Oh, interesting.
Like watching a prequel, because I feel like when we get the sequel, because this is setting up a sequel, I can feel it in my bones.
They've said it's a standalone.
What?
Yeah, that this is its own thing.
No, like we're getting a sequel with the girls. Right?
I don't
Something
know.
with the girls, because I feel like we need. Okay, yeah, but there's so many. Who are these people?
Right? Why did you allude to them? Give us these 3 damsels who
hope
then grow in power. I don't know.
They all have such interesting
powers.
Things going
opportunities.
on.
Yeah.
Also, why is it such a big thing inside of the Spider-Verse that having more limbs as a spider character does not give you more power? It just gives you more limbs.
Are those actual limbs or are those robotic? I really wanted to know more about what was going on there.
I kind of like them though. They're
spider
cool.
person.
They're cool.
They're cool, but like they're not gonna help you. Like, they helped Dr. Octopus because he needed them for his research and his work. But like, they're not like more limbs as a spider person. You can already climb in walls. And these more limbs, if they're robotic, they're just gonna punch through the walls.
Can we talk about the connection to the Spider-Verse? I.e. Ben Parker, Mary Parker,
yeah,
Peter Parker.
Just want to keep talking about those girls because I'm thinking about them still.
Oh.
I'm super invested in them too, and I'm really disappointed that the show gave us so much more Ezekiel and not
enough
introducing of them.
We kept seeing Julia too in the beginning. Like we
saw all 3 of them at one point in the beginning. But why wouldn't it have focused on them? Something that's going on with them. Show us that things are not so great with them.
Like giving us more of their pre-backstory.
Exactly.
Somehow.
Establishing them as solid characters that when Madame Web, when Cassandra comes into their life, it's more impactful.
Yeah, we see that it's actually like a good change for them.
The best, I would say honestly, the best scene of the film is the scene where Cassie teaches them CPR.
I agree.
And that
100%.
it had the best foreshadowing for later events. It was the most poignant to the growth and emotional attachment between Cassie and the girls. And it was the least nauseating. And it showed them working as a team, which I think is really important.
And how proud she was of them. They could do the rhythm and they cared about each other and they were working together.
Mm-hmm.
It's honestly, yes, you're right. That was such a good scene. I also actually really liked them not listening to her and going off and kind of being like
the diner scene is
a
pretty
trio
good.
And the diner, because it kind of showed their personalities more and it showed like them being interested in guys and like wanting to be dumb teens and how that was kind of very relatable.
Oh, absolutely.
I think the way that they could have fixed a lot of the Ezekiel stuff is had the guy call in and then we don't see anything from him. Or
just cut him out.
Chair. Just cut that.
We don't
right?
need
like
the lady in the chair.
We didn't need actually anything. He could have just been very imposing, and
he could have been a masked villain.
Maybe he's on a phone, or we hear him talking to somebody, but we didn't actually need to see who that person was.
I'm perfectly fine with knowing it was Ezekiel, the one who killed the mom. I'm good with all of that.
Yeah.
We just don't need the establishing
That's
shots
what I'm
for the
talking
villain,
about.
right?
Yeah, 90% less villain.
Yeah.
To your, talking about the girls themselves, I felt like their relationship with Cassie, I find Dakota Johnson to be quite an awkward actor in the shows, in the movies and things like that I've seen her in. But her awkwardness in this role where she's like, I don't know how to relate to humans, played very,
and
very
to kids
well.
Especially.
Like, yeah. And like, I don't even know how to relate to other moms and women. I don't know how to relate to...
I know how to relate to one person, and that's Ben.
Yeah, I literally know how to relate to one human, and that's my partner on the, EMS.
Yeah, I don't even think she knows how to talk to her cat, because I don't think the cat had a name other than Cat.
It was a stray.
It's not her cat.
Right,
even.
but it is her cat, because she's feeding that cat. If you're feeding a cat, it's your cat. Just let's be clear. That's how that works. I loved the interactions between Dakota Johnson and the guy who played Ben. Great chemistry. And when she went to the baby shower, that was a great scene.
Yeah.
Like, I enjoyed my time with the cringe of that the entire time.
Yeah.
As she's like not putting any words on a piece of paper, yet folding it and putting it in. Why didn't we get to see her do that? Look at it and be like, fold it and put nothing in the...
It's because we were getting an Ezekiel scene.
Right?
Right.
I'm too busy.
And so this movie is like not quite 2 hours. It doesn't feel like a lot happens. And the reason for that is because they're Groundhog Daying us. So much of it is repeated. There's so many scenes where you get to see it one time and then you have to watch it again to see something different happen from that outcome. And so less can be done in a movie for that reason. But I think they do a really good job of keeping us invested and interested, because I didn't check to see what time it was the entire time we watched them. Did any of you check the time?
I think I checked really early on.
Yeah, when I got a notification, I checked.
Okay. Did you check your
Nope.
I was engaged and entertained the entire time.
I kept on asking myself why people hated this movie. Because I enjoyed it a lot. I do think, again, some structure problems, less Ezekiel.
Oh,
but I could
they didn't like it because women.
But the music, I want to talk about the music.
The music
too,
was great,
because it was spot on 2003 era music. It was great. The heyday Britney Spears Toxic music.
Toxic was great.
And not only that, but all of the songs were relevant and apropos to the themes of the movie.
Even ending it with Dreams by the Cranberries was great. Yeah.
Dad, you know how you asked me, hey, what's better, this or Wonka? And I said, Wonka. What's better, this or the Marvels?
The Marvels.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're pretty close to me as far as level, and I enjoyed the Marvels. So.
I'm glad both exist.
Yeah.
You know,
but I didn't
they do
get
different things.
As much girl power interaction in this. I just got Cassie leading 3 strays around.
But again, they were children damsels, right?
Exactly.
So it comes with the particular archetype that they're in.
They keep showing us these 3 girls are powerful superheroes to be.
Yeah.
But they never empower them.
They don't have any kind of magical, the only thing that makes them special is that Ezekiel is after them.
Yeah.
Right? And that's sad. I wish, it just feels like all of them were giving a lot to the roles that they had. We saw Anya's apprehension to engage with a lot of the more dangerous stuff, was being reasonable. And we saw Maddie's impulsivity, and we saw Julia's hesitance when it comes to authority and quickness to apologize at even the slightest wrongdoing, which to me was oh, that one's traumatized. I just wish we got more of them.
Yes.
They could have given the girls powers in the course of the movie and it would have worked. Given them spider powers.
Or at least hinted to what was to come, rather than see flashes of a distant future where they're already fully powered. Show us how they're going to come to get to those powers. Because it certainly isn't going to be math, skateboarding, and big
trauma,
big anime eyes.
Right. She had the biggest eyes.
I think it's because of the glasses.
Yeah.
Also, Sydney Sweeney just has big eyes.
What about the Ben, May, Peter connection? What did you think of that?
May, in that beginning, we saw Ben.
Sorry, Mary.
Yeah, Mary. But in the beginning, we saw Ben and Cassie talking about a relationship that Ben's got into, and that's Aunt May, right?
And he wouldn't name who it was.
Yeah.
They never name Peter or May.
No.
Which is so smart. I thought it was the best way to play with this Easter egg, for lack of a better
Aunt Cassie, you guys.
The potentiality.
Yeah, the potentiality of it.
It's fine. We already have.
I loved the idea of getting to know Ben before we watch him die. I loved that. I love the fact that we love him.
I love
him in the
absolutely.
movie.
Yeah.
Like, let's bring Marissa Tomei in, and she can play young May, because, I mean, honestly, she looks any age she wants to look anyway already.
Right.
And she can come in and play opposite the guy who played Ben. What was his name?
Adam Scott.
Adam Scott, who plays such a great bad guy most of the time. He usually plays such a great dillweed
What is he
jerk face.
Is he in Severance? Is that?
Yes.
He's in Severance. He's in The Good Place.
As a
He's in
jerk.
The Good Place as
He's
a
devil.
jerk. He's one of the devils. That's where I know
He
him
plays
from.
the best jerk.
Oh, yeah.
And here he is as the foundation of Uncle Ben. Like,
He's so happy to be an uncle.
this is a great. He's so good in this
Great
role.
guy.
I would just like to say the Marvels, people said, did not do very good in the box office. I mean, it got a 6.5 on IMDb and a 62% in Rotten Tomatoes. But compared to Madam Web, 3.8 in IMDb and a 15% in Rotten Tomatoes.
It is not doing well from a review perspective.
So that's called a dog pile.
Yeah.
Like the person's on the ground, they've got the ball, and the other team just throws people on them in the hopes that they might hurt the person on the ground. It doesn't change the fact that the team has the ball. It's not going to squeak the ball out and change possession. They're just trying to hurt the person. And that's what this is. This is just a deliberate attempt for hurt. This doesn't change the fact that this is a good movie and worth your time and money.
Yep.
Very much so. Worth your time and money, especially in the theater. Like, you will have a much more visceral experience seeing this in the theater than you would watching it streaming down the road. The same with the Marvels. We're going to watch that this weekend, and it won't be the same on our 55-inch TV than it was at the theater with the big booming surround sound versus just our TV's sound, right?
Yep.
This movie especially is definitely made for the big screen. It's like, it has that energy, right? It actually reminded me a lot of that first Spider-Man Sam Raimi movie. Just kind of when it was set and like the filters on everything. And I feel like we got a lot of the same shots of Dakota Johnson.
People complained about the cheesy lines, but have they ever seen that Sam Raimi Spider-Man?
Right?
The third one?
Yeah, no, the first one.
The first one.
Oh my gosh, it's so cheesy.
I will also add, just for everybody here,
I loved it.
You don't need a visa to go from the US to Peru. So you can go to Peru without a visa as a tourist. You can just get on a plane and go.
You checked?
I literally Googled that while we were recording this because it was really bothering me that she just was like, I'm going to go to Peru. I'll be back in 4 days.
Doesn't she have like citizenship in Peru? Because she was born in Peru.
But even if she does or doesn't, it doesn't matter. You can just go to Peru. You don't have to like do any worry or work about things.
Do you want to go to Peru?
I'm so kind of floored about her childhood. And I would have loved flashbacks of that.
Like, how did
she get foster care?
How did she come to be in the U.S.?
Is she a U.S. citizen?
Maybe maybe they were like, oh, her mother was like, they could tell this was her mother, and so like they, I don't know, dropped off her body at the same time or something, and they were like, oh, this is a U.S. citizen. This kid has to go back to. How did she get back to the U.S.? How did we see all of the baby stuff that we saw in that suitcase? Like, where did we get the suitcase? Like, what's about that? Like, who was taking care of her for the like majority of her life? She was in foster care. So
yeah. But like, obviously, she was probably passed around as what happens with foster care. But like, How? Why? I have questions.
Me too.
Does she speak Peruvian?
I would think. But I would also really like to know what the average cut length is on this movie, because just that scene in the with the suitcase, I spent my time counting how many times per cuts, and no cut was longer than 8 seconds, and that was just her looking in a suitcase. And that scene was maybe a minute and a half of time.
We also got another Dutch angle of her looking in the suitcase.
Yes.
Yeah.
But like that's how often the cuts were happening. For a slow scene like that,
editing
an
nightmare,
establishing thing, let alone the fast-paced action of later
VFX.
On. Yeah, there was so much
many VFX.
Yeah, but it was interesting because a lot of the VFX was future-related stuff, so it was already all CGI. There wasn't a lot of like interaction in the meat space of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Can we cut the movie just so that we see none of the like what she sees with the future and it's just what's actually happening? That would be so funny. I'd be like, she would just look crazy.
Right?
You know, honestly, still one of my favorite scenes was her driving the taxi into the diner and hitting the guy. That was so satisfying.
And then when she did it with the hospital truck later, that was so cool.
And they established that she was good with vehicles in the beginning.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite parts, was like they did a great job of taking the time to establish she's a great driver and you can trust her behind the wheel of the ambulance because she's going to get the patient to the hospital on time. And she's the reason the stepmother lived. And all I did was drive, right? Because then later on, it shows how smooth and clean and easy she is driving the vehicle.
Twice with the car.
That man is made of metal.
Like through the tunnel.
Parking garage,
out the thing. Onto the street.
And she predicted that he was going to jump up. That was so good.
Just at the right moment.
Oh, man. Okay.
Hey guys, what if this entire movie was just taking place inside of a hospital bed and she's just very like in a coma?
I thought they were going to do that, actually.
That's one of those things with these sorts of movies where you cannot trust the end viewpoint, right? Because we're playing with time. How do we know that any of this cannot just be rewritten when she goes back further in time and stops it from happening at all?
She just has schizophrenia and she's just like, I'm back in time now.
And that's how I became blind and paralyzed.
Did you like her when responsibility comes to you, you will get more powerful moment?
Oh, that was so nice.
How did she become blind and paralyzed for being underwater for 30 seconds?
Because the shrapnel from the falling things
we saw that.
Hit her in the face and hit her in the body. And that's very classic, like Madam Web. She's in a wheelchair or in a floaty like thingy.
Not from an accident.
Blind.
She has a disease,
right?
An ailment.
Which they said that in the movie, but that she's been protecting. Yeah, it's fine.
They changed from comics, yeah.
Oh, yeah. In the comics, she's a mutant.
Well, yeah, because I got very strong mutant energy. Like at the end, she's become this like wise character now, and I don't feel like I saw the transition.
It was such a fast transition to crone.
And when she started speaking like, oh, you're going to do all of these great things, I was like, is this the same character?
Too soon. I was like, too soon. I would like to see you come to grips with being blind and paralyzed after being a paramedic and saving the day moments earlier. And then who chose those sunglasses for you? Because obviously you have not seen the future well enough to know that those don't work.
Yeah, right? Yeah. She, obviously that was the trick that the girls were playing on her.
Let alone the wraparound visor we see of the future.
It's so bad.
It was so Jubilee from the X-Men cartoons.
It really is like late 90s.
Yeah.
Here's one of my main problems with the entire thing. When she's underwater, she doesn't try to swim back up. She's just like, oh, it's over now. Time to die.
Well, okay. So that was the end one. And the earlier one, she fell in the blast of being in the car is what did her in, right?
Yeah.
So.
But the earlier one, she's just like, oh, I fell in the water.
Will, you bring up a really good point, but that's actually a thing in the archetypical transition when you are at the height of your power. If you die, you have to accept death, and it's a metaphorical death. thus a rebirth into being a crone, which is you have to accept that you can die and that now your journey is to guide the next generation of heroes.
And Ezekiel, he was just...
Which I liked a lot, even though it's not as successful because of the weird glasses.
Okay, why did Ezekiel just... Like, I think I would have liked it more if she didn't wear the glasses.
She was just the eyes, yeah.
Because we already saw the eyes, right? Like...
Yeah, or maybe she's like unbreakable and water is her weakness.
Yeah, maybe.
As soon as she goes in the water, it's like, oh, I'm done.
Okay, why does Ezekiel keep this spider inside of like a chamber? Like, why did he not just like step on the spider after he had the powers?
Haven't obviously seen the Pantora videos.
Ants Canada, and he's created a vivarium.
And he's created a vivarium. He's really hoping that this is one of those spiders that will just automatically clone itself.
So I think it's a curse, and the spider and he are connected.
Yes.
And the spider dies, he dies.
I think that he just like
Probably. That makes more sense.
I think he like sticks his arm in there every week.
Well,
he does YouTube videos.
Guys, we wouldn't know because did they explain it? No.
But also less of him.
Yeah.
I didn't need to see the spider.
I don't care, him and his spider friend.
Cut him out of the movie.
I don't care.
That's how that was a relationship that would have had to be developed well over time, because that spider did not want to be in that glass jar to begin with, and he saves the spider from the glass jar after the spider bears witness to the murdering.
What did you think of the whole tribe of spider people?
So cool.
So cool. Awesome.
Cool. I loved it. I loved the idea of it.
So the idea is like spider people were always meant to happen.
Yes.
It's kind of cool. I like that. There's like a fate thing.
Screw you, Miguel. There isn't just one. There's lots.
There's lots.
Like, even Miguel would be really mad right now, right? Like, because he's like, there's only one Spider-Man. And that Spider-Man is made through loss and suffering and losing of the thing.
Oh, Miguel O'Hara from
Suck It, Miguel.
Across the Spider-Verse. Yeah.
No one likes him.
Miles Morales, you were never supposed to be Spider-Man, so I went back in time and stopped you from being Spider-Man, but that created a black hole in your universe, so like, I realized that was your canon event and I was wrong,
right?
But I'm still not wrong, I was right all the time.
And so what's interesting is that in the spider world, the Miguel O'Hara's character for like the controlling artifact of the Spider-Verse, much of that in the comics has been Madam Web in the past. Mm-hmm. And she is like the person pulling the strings of the Spider-Verse to make sure it stays stable and supported. And she has a cadre of spider folk that work with her.
So when are we getting Madam Web beyond the Spider-Verse?
I don't know, but I feel like that's a possibility that could come.
It'd be cool if she was actually
her animated
in the Spider-Verse movie.
Yeah, she's not even animated. She's just there in it.
She's just like, it's just Dakota Johnson, just like her. What they did with
Lego Spider-Man.
No.
And Lego Spider-Man.
She's just shaking her hand with like the Lego
I know him
Spider-Man.
by his music name, not his actual name. I'm so sorry.
Childish Gambino?
Yeah, that's what my brain was saying.
Troy?
Troy
and Abed in the morning.
Nice.
Here's one of my main questions about the Spider-Man and the Lego one inside of Across the Spider-Verse. Is he a master builder?
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
I built us this Lego helicopter.
You know a teenager animated that part?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, cool.
I found his YouTube channel.
Oh, nice.
Through another Lego animator YouTube channel.
Cool.
He was like, I fought the kid who animated Spider-Man. They did this whole like cinematic battle between each other.
So what are your final thoughts about Madam Web?
The movie was good and it had spiders in it.
What was it trying to tell you? Like,
what was the main takeaway?
He will die.
Ouch, dude.
Love
Dark.
It. I'm gonna go and yes and to that.
Yes, and I will
die.
The
difference is in my parents.
Yes, and I will make you die.
Oh my goodness. What are your final thoughts?
It's a really good movie. If you're interested in spider people, you should definitely go watch it. And I think the major takeaway, you must confront your fears and you must confront your past in order to fulfill your full potential. And there's this trope in British media, which Mom said something earlier that reminded me of. In like British plays and stuff, think Shakespeare. When you're at the height of your power, the tragedy comes from when you fall, right? Versus American media, right? Like the tragedy is never reaching your power. But especially in like British media, you must be ready to accept when you fall after the height of your power, basically. And that's like one of the takeaways, I think. Confront your past, and you must be ready to accept when you are no longer in the spotlight.
So this movie is about being a parent and about the sacrifices that we make. And I talked about this at the beginning. But it's fundamentally a movie about trying to allow life to happen and fight against death. And even though death is a possibility for us all, it's trying to make a better life for those who are around you. And to me, that is incredibly hope punk. It's the idea that, you know, there's these horrible things that are always coming to get you or to take away the things that you love. And you can try and build a better tomorrow for your children. And Madame Webb's children are the 3 girls. And we see her mother's child, Madame Webb, she makes a better tomorrow for her children. And we see Mary making a better tomorrow for Peter by having been there and being part of his life. So it's about what we give to the next generation.
Yeah, and don't forget the pigeon. She's a mom to a pigeon now too.
She is a mom to a pigeon now too, and a cat. Yeah.
Well, she literally changed fate for the pigeon.
Right.
That moment's so important because that's when she first realizes that she can have an effect on the world.
Yeah.
Robin, how would you rate the movie out of 10?
7.5.
Dad, how would you rate the movie out of 10?
So I don't like rating movies out of things because it's an arbitrary number and it's only going to mean anything
Nor do
to me.
I.
So I'm not going to do that.
But what are your final thoughts then?
But my final thoughts are...
But like, how much did you like the movie out of 10?
Bruh.
A lot. I liked certain things about the movie, and the movie gave me a great opportunity to think about something. And that is the lie the character believes to be true. And it's not until that lie is revealed and the transition is made and the forgiveness is made that the redemption arc can even occur. And the lie that Ezekiel believes true is that these girls are going to kill him. That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And when he finally realizes that,
late.
He dies. Yeah. It's too late for him. But for Cassandra Webb, the lie she believes to be true is that her mom, in the 3rd trimester of her pregnancy, just took off to Peru because spiders meant more to her mom than she did.
Yeah.
And when that's finally broken down as a lie, and she realizes it's a lie and can't hold anymore, that's when she's allowed her own redemptive arc and can hug her mom for the first time in the past.
The only time.
Which is that.
And can move forward with her own development and growth.
Yeah, which is that healing of the mother-daughter split that's so important.
And it's such a good moment in the movie. And this movie is full of good moments. It's just these other moments that you're like, why are these things happening, and why did you need to spend the time to tie those ropes and strings to connect that scene? Just allow it to be a connected scene. It's a comic book movie. We will get there.
Yeah.
We are not a dumb audience.
We actually needed 90% less Ezekiel. So.
Exactly.
All he did was take up space.
Yep.
You know, at the very end there, he could have like explained his thought process, like the
monologued.
Like the Spider-Man Spot, I created you, and you created me. Spider-Man, why did you create that guy?
Spot is more sympathetic and more interesting than Ezekiel.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Because we got more Spot.
We didn't get more Spot. We got less.
We got way less Spot.
I want to say one last thing, and that is they do a good job of making innocuous things important, i.e., she spends so much time on the road, getting back into that taxi cab, driving down the road. You can hear the song playing. You're like, the song's gotten further than it was in the other show. Remember, they were already dancing. And like, is she going to make it by the time the song ends?
And she doesn't.
And she's swerving around the big logging truck, pulling back, and then finally swerving around. You're like, she's not going to make it in time. And
she tries.
And she never intended to. And the reason she passes the truck and then swerves around it, she didn't even need to do that. She could stay behind it and then turned. She needed to have her speed built up enough so that she could crash into the diner fast enough and take out Ezekiel.
Yep.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what this movie represents. This movie is spending so much time bobbing and weaving behind the logging truck of the plot for us to finally get that resolution. And unfortunately, you can't do that for a whole movie. You can't bob and weave behind.
Yeah. There's a brilliant movie in this movie somewhere.
I wanted Ezekiel to be mad about getting hit by a car. Like, stop hitting me with cars. Whenever I confront you, you hit me with a car.
Yeah, and then she hits him with the helicopter. That would have been...
Yeah, somehow figures out how to hit him with the helicopter. I kept on wanting her to be like Madam Web to the S and drop the S on him.
Yeah.
I wanted her to be the reason the S actually fell in the end. Instead of just like waiting.
She still was the reason the S
Yes,
fell.
but it would have been even more satisfying if she was like, and push.
Yeah.
Like just like, boop, one finger.
It was well worth my time, well worth the conversation. I'm going to think about this movie probably all weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something I would like to incorporate into my own stories. The ability to change things is something I've already been doing in Tavern Tales for years and years and years with gems.
Yep.
And to have those moments come up more in my own storytelling, I think is a great tool to add to your tool belt to make interesting changes that still don't impact your overall plot, but give your audience something to enjoy and ponder.
Thank you. All right.
Oh. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for listening. Cheers.
Dormammu, I've come to podcast.